All right, good day, everybody. I'm kind of making hay without the sun shining, and I got to get at it while I got a little bit of spare time. I got to get these raised beds, these in this greenhouse, I got to get these beds full. And what I'm doing now is filling these raised beds right now with organic material right there. You can see I'm putting logs in there. There's some old potted plants in the bottom in here. Right there. I'm just filling everything up with decomposing wood. So I'm filling everything up in there, probably halfway with decomposing wood. And it's much, much better for your raised beds, flower beds, whatever, your garden period. If you've got organics on the bottom and you're kind of layering the rotten logs, rotten wood, whatever, you can throw anything in the bottom to fill that up. Compost, anything. And it's just generally good for the soil and good for the plants as this wood breaks down. And it's just got all kinds of things in it too, which help growing, because we're going to be growing vegetables in here. So it just helps with the growing process between, you know, the bacteria and the fungi in there and rhizomes and everything that's in those logs will be in the soil, bacteria, everything you need for good growing. And not only that, another huge advantage is I don't have to shovel nearly as much soil in there and horse manure and compost to fill those to the top, because you really only need a little bit of, you really only need probably 12 or 14 inches of soil on the top really for growing vegetables. So the rest really, you could call it fill, but it plays such an important role in the health of your soil in there, rather than just fill the whole thing top to bottom with topsoil and a little bit of manure. You know what? You're better off to fill the bed with a little bit of fill first, and logs, rotting leaves, everything, layer, horse manure, even pieces of grass, whatever, compost, whatever you can put in there first, and then fill your bins up and then top them off with some growing medium on top. And eventually what's going to happen is that is going to compost slowly while it feeds your plants, and it just gives you a superior quality of soil. This garden over here to my right here, that garden over there that I'm hardly using anymore is just full of wood. The whole thing underneath there is just full. That is just full of old 2x4s and not treated lumber, just old spruce and some logs and some bark. And underneath that garden, I buried everything under there. I covered it over with good soil, and it's been breaking down for 4 years now. And let me tell you, the soil over there, and I've top dressed it and basically mulched it all with leaves and everything else. And that soil over there is breaking down really good. But that's mainly going to be for now growing garlic and potatoes over there, as where this indoor greenhouse is going to be for your climbing stuff. A few cucumbers, a lettuce, tomatoes, and all that stuff that's a little bit more tender that we want to keep away from all the bugs and rabbits and everything else. This coarse stuff over here, like potatoes and garlic and all that, that's fine. It can stay there. Nothing really bothers that too much. So that's what I'm up to today. And luckily, I got all this junky wood left over from a clearing job, so the stuff I brought down, that's been sitting on the edge of the driveway like for 2 years. And it works perfect. Perfect for this. And it's a whole lot cheaper. It's a whole lot cheaper than going out and buying a whole truckload of topsoil or potting soil or whatever by the bag. You know what? Fill all this, fill 50% of this bed at least, and then top it off. And this eventually just breaks down and mixes with the soil, and it works good. And again, even if while it breaks down, it robs a little nitrogen from the soil, this wood, it also gives back quite a bit too, through, like I say, bacteria, rhizome, mushrooms, everything in there is breaking down. So it may take nitrogen out of the soil while it's doing it, but it does give back to the soil. And let's face it, we're going to be adding from the top too. We're going to be top dressing this soil a little bit with composting and some manure and everything else, because I got and I'll show you guys. I just trucked home probably 20 yards, 21 yards of horse manure over here that I'll show you too. And this is nothing really new. This happens in Mother Nature every day. Every day of the week, every day of the year. This exact thing happens with Mother Nature in the bush. And really, they said, oh, the Germans do it. I thought, Mother Nature does it. You can call it hugelkultur, whatever you want to call it, because that's what it's called. German term. Just means mound. And a built-up mound, and growing on top of that built-up mound with all your organics below, and they call it hugelkultur, but really, it's routine. It happens in Mother Nature every day in the bush. Everything gets layered. There's logs in the bottom. They break down. Leaves fall on the logs. It's just natural decomposition, and it builds you a perfect soil. Perfect. So then in between, as you can tell, between these logs, there's some voids, right? You've got your voids, you got your airspace and everything else, and that will just slowly settle in with watering and horse manure and topsoil. Everything in this will break down and it will start settling with watering and everything else. But the beauty of this, another major good thing about doing this, and I forgot to mention too, and it works so good in the garden over here too. Not only does it enrich your soil, but what it does do is it absorbs water. So when you're watering from the top and all that water trickles down through everything on top a little bit and real slow, where's it going to go? Well, that wood is going to absorb it like a sponge. It's never really going to get through to get drained down through all this gravel underneath and everything, because the wood is going to take it in like a sponge. So it's going to continuously, the wood, not only hold water, but it's going to break down. It's going to grow all those rhizomes, and you guys have probably seen them in the bush. When you pull back the leaves and you pull back your logs, you look and you've got the spaghetti-looking strands of rhizomes in the bush. That's all soil quality. That's the breakdown, and that's what you need. The rhizomes, the bacteria, to give you good quality soil. So you're never really... water never goes to waste like this, like it would in a normal garden, you know, that's not mulched or anything. Starts at the top and goes right down in the ground, and you get very minimal use of the water. This, you water it, and it stays within these logs, and these logs act like sinks, like sponges. They hold it, and then during a hot summer or whatever, you know what, your plant roots can slowly go down and get in there, and it will release that water. It's a deadly technique, and I've used it before, and you know what, you don't have to be a real rocket scientist to kind of figure out how Mother Nature works, and then you kind of mimic it to your own benefit, and it's a good gig, and it worked fabulous over here in this garden behind me for the last couple of years. So I would highly recommend, if you're putting in beds or anything like that, man, I would say try it. Give it a go. And if you look here in this one, I've already thrown the old plant matter in here and some biodegradable egg cartons and whatever in the bottom end of this. And I'll just... we even got some old coneflower echinacea in the bottom, whatever we threw in here, some old potting soil plants. Into the bottom they go. So into the bottom of the bins they go, all that waste, and now we'll just cover it up. And I got a line of some really good horse manure. Like, I trucked it home the other night, and of course, horse manure ages, you know, from the outside with the newest stuff into your deepest stuff that's in the center of the pile that's completely broke down. Well, it took me a while to dig into the center of that pile with a track loader, but I opened up the outside and I got into that horse shit inside, and I'll tell you, it's premium stuff, man. And that's what we're going to be using to fill And I'll show you the bulk of these beds all along both sides in here. It's kind of messy right now, but that's what we're going to use. And really, well, they are beds, but they're just crates. Look, I grabbed a few crates, and that's all we're going to do. We're just going to try it, see how things work out in there. And these ones I built right there. So that's what I'm up to today. I want to get, hopefully, all the logs in here, no problem, and then start bringing in some manure, and we'll start doing some layering. This is what you want. You want the ones that are wet and soggy that have been rotting here for like 3 years. 2 or 3 years. I think the first year I moved here from clearing, this was here. I put it here, I mean. And see what you're trying to get into? Look at that there. You got that all decomposing on the bottom and heavy and wet. There's another load. All right, you guys. Have a look at that garden bed. She's a beauty. Have a look. That's probably 2.5 bucket loads in there out of that B26 right there. So have a little look. That's not quite as good as it's going to get for now, but, and there's your empty one right there. Now compare that to this beauty right there. So let's do one final thing, just because I have it here and it's cheap. I got this bagged soil and I'm going to throw it on. So I'm going to throw on this bag of soil. Just because I have it. And just because it looks so good. And this is 3-to-1 planting mix, it says. All-purpose soil mix, ideal for flower beds, enriched with compost. Right there. Cheap stuff. I bought a few bags of this because we've got lots of stuff coming in pots in here, and we've got lots of stuff in the house already well started. We've got dozens and dozens of pots in the house of everything. Like I'm talking tomatoes, cucumbers, onions. We got everything going in the house. So, this stuff here, I'm just going to top dress this a little bit with it. And maybe I'll even throw a little more manure on top. Who knows? But I mean, look at this. I think this is almost the epitome of perfection for a garden bed. Okay, now that's looking pretty good. Look how dark that is. And very friable too for your root system in here. Very good for your roots. Your roots will not be fighting anything in here. When they want to grow and spread out, they're not fighting a hard, compacted soil. It's loose. It's what they call friable. It falls between your fingers, you know, and it crumbles. Very, very nice soil. And let's face it, this is only going to compost and break down over time. All right, you guys, I just wanted to show you these garden beds. I want to get this stuff going because my season's, well, it's already picked up. I'm waiting for the half loads to come off these roads for these triaxle trucks. I got 3 jobs booked, so right now we're just at a bit of a standstill. So I want to get these beds done for Mary Jane and myself, so when I'm gone out working on the machines, she can still be fooling around at home part-time in her garden beds. And you know what? When she's doing that, it's just good for your mind. Working in the greenhouse and the garden is good for your mind. And your soul, for sure. Okay. Alright, so as you guys seen in there, I laid down that horse manure. I picked up a pile of horse manure, and I brought home several bins of horse manure. So that's what I used inside those beds on top of the logs. And like I say, when you get into the center of that pile with that horse manure, you look at how that stuff just breaks down. It's completely broken down in the center, and it just crumbles. It's not like you're dealing with wet, greasy shit here. That's just broken down, like I said, friable. And then I got into something here too. And I trucked this stuff home here the other day too, in several bins, just from somebody who was doing a big clearing job and chipping. So I got offered to take some chips, so I thought, good, because I've been looking for chips. I used them to mulch my outdoor garden, so I got the chips and the horse manure. Now I'll show you those beds. All right, so here's the finished product on these beds. And like I said, these beds are completely done now. And like I said, the organic material in the bottom, layered with that manure I just showed you, that really nice broken down horse manure. And then I filled these bins probably 85, maybe 90% full of everything else. And then I went and I bought several bags of composted compost and topsoil mixed, almost like a triple mix, but not quite. But a lot of compost in it. And if you look here, here's the end result right there of the beds. And if you look, that's what you got. You've got your horse manure right there mixed in, probably down, 3 inches in there. So that composted horse manure that's been breaking down for several years at the farm there, like I said, about 80-90% of the bed, and then the rest is all compost and topsoil mixed in, almost like a triple mix on top. So this should be good, and should be really good actually. And like I say, it'll always remain moist down in the bottom, and those plant roots can get right down there. And I always got some wildflowers on the go here too, like black-eyed Susies, a little bit of lupines. We really got to watch the lupines because they're kind of invasive, but they're nice. And we got coreopsis in here and a whole bunch of stuff, and good for the birds and the bees. And these are all wildflower mix we got going on here too, because I've tried the wildflowers, starting them in the fields in the springtime. I have very low success rate, and it's an extreme amount of work to do it that way, to burn the ground down and make a wildflower meadow. Very tough to do. It's a lot of work and a lot of dedication. So I found that I have a much higher success rate of starting the wildflower seeds in the greenhouse or in the house in pots. Get them up like these ones right here. Get them growing right up. And we'll just keep feeding them, watering them, babying them in here. And then we split them in here. And then we take and we plant them all over the place. Wherever we want them, we leave them in the small pots. We take them out there and then we transplant them in the ground. And we get dozens and dozens of wildflowers that way. And it usually works out pretty good. So not just vegetables growing in here. I always start wildflowers because when you got wildflowers, it's just, it does a lot for the native insects. It's incredible what they do. So I just thought I'd show you guys the finished result of these garden beds here, because this is the finished product. Now, I shouldn't say almost finished. It's like finished, but not really. I'm looking at maybe getting a bale of the straw and wood chips that they use for animal bedding. It's ground up fairly fine. It's straw wood chip combo rather than just straight wood chips. I've used it before in the chicken house, and it's a finer bedding, and I like it. So I might get a couple bales of that, and then just mulch the top of these beds maybe a ½ inch, just to keep that sun down. And as you can see, we're in the midst of putting some shade cloth up. It's just here for now, but it's recommended it go on the outside of the greenhouse. I thought about stringing it onto the inside of the greenhouse, but we were still researching that, and I think it's proven that the shade cloth should go on the outside of the greenhouse because it gets incredibly warm in here. That's where we are. That's a little up to date in the greenhouse. We've been busier than a one-arm paper hanger, I'll tell you, in here trying to get these boxes filled and everything and get this all done so I can move on to other projects. I got work to do. So anyway, that's where we are. Thanks you guys for tuning in, and just a little greenhouse update. And we got all the seedlings in the house. Everything's coming up nicely, and we're going to transplant in here. And it should work out good. Even though I wish the greenhouse was like 4 times as big, of course. It's like a shop. Yeah, I wish it was bigger. But anyway, we're growing in the beds. We're growing in the pots on the ground here too to start. And we'll see how things go. It's definitely going to be easier to maintain. And what I did out here, I mulched that old garden over there with wood chips. I just covered the whole top. Keep the weeds down, let them break down. I got potatoes growing in there right now, and we'll just leave that alone, and it'll take a good season, 2 seasons to break down, and that'll be it for that, because we're not using it that much. So just a greenhouse update. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. And like I said, it's coming along nice. And I can't wait to show you the end result of these tomatoes and any climbing plants that we're going to be stringing along this greenhouse, this whole side. And hope for the best. Hopefully we keep things under control. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you in the next one.